Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Let's go to General Jack Keane, and maybe he has some good opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring in General Jack Keane, and of course, his great background. He is a retired 4-star general. He's also the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, and he's also a Fox News senior strategic analyst. General Jack Keane, what are your thoughts about where things should go from here?
Well, first of all, we have to be clear-eyed about what has happened here. The Iranians shut down the Straits of Hormuz to accomplish one objective, and that is to stop the war, and they accomplished that. Then their second objective was to begin negotiations and drag out the negotiations over time so that at some point the pressure would rise on the president politically and economically that he'd be willing to walk away. And here we are. We went to 2 weeks on a deadline, and then we extended it a week, and then we extended it indefinitely. So now we're at 6 weeks in a negotiation phase. The war would have been over 2.5 weeks ago if we had continued with the mission that we assigned ourselves, and we'd be dealing with keeping the Straits of Hormuz open right now. That's where we would be, but we're not there. But we're 6 weeks in, and we still don't appear to be any closer to a deal that I see in achieving that. And I totally agree. We should have imposed deadlines on ourselves, if not on them. And I think we should have returned to full combat operations. Let's assume we get a good deal. But here's some of the limitations of a good deal. Number one, they're going to want release of the frozen assets that are in excess of $100 billion. Maybe not all of them, some of them initially, and some of it condition-based. Two, a release of the sanctions that are being imposed on them. Again, not all at once, but condition-based. What does that do? Obviously, the regime survives, but we begin to finance the recovery of the regime. In other words, we're extending the life of this regime for years to come. Was that what the intent was at the beginning? I don't think so. I think the intent was to do as much damage to this regime as possible. We knew we couldn't do physical regime change without troops on the ground, but we felt that we could put them in such a vulnerable condition that they'd be vulnerable to their own people. That was the intent, and that's not where we are right now. The second thing that's going to happen, and it's almost guaranteed to happen. We signed the deal, and no matter what is on that piece of paper in terms of our objectives, nuclear dust is out of there, no enrichment, no support for the proxies, restriction on ballistic missile program. We know for a fact, after 47 years in dealing with these guys, no matter what is on that piece of paper, it means nothing to them. They will begin to reverse everything that's on that piece of paper and cheat. That is what we'll be passing on to the next administration. I think we got to call it for what it really is and go back to full combat operations and finish this thing once and for all and open up the Straits of Hormuz.
So, General Jack Keane, what does that look like? Is that Karg Island? What is that to really decimate them?
Yeah, what people are concerned about, so our audience understands, if we go back to combat operations, the Iranians are threatening, and the administration is listening, that they would retaliate against the Arab oil and gas fields. And as a result of that, the world could spin into some kind of global recession. Well, first of all, that doesn't account for the fact that we can defend those capabilities, and not all of that is going to get through. It doesn't account for the fact that we can take Cargallen, and I'm glad you brought that up, Rita. We can tell the Iranians before hostilities begin, if you attack the Arab oil or gas fields, we will begin to systematically dismantle Cargallen. In other words, systematically destroy it. And every oil and gas export facility that you have on your mainland, we will destroy. And I think that is leverage. Whether it works or not I don't know until we actually execute it. But it is significant leverage that we have. I just know we're not in a good place right now with looking for a deal. I know President Trump is not going to make a bad deal. That I've got confidence in. But as I said, there's also limitations to even a good deal because it extends the life of the regime for sure, and they're going to cheat and try to reverse it.
You know, General Jack Keane, I was watching you earlier on Fox, and you brought up an interesting premise about offering the IRGC, these Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the hardened guys, a free trip out. Explain that.
Well, if we go back to full combat operations, listen, in the 6 weeks that we've been in this negotiation phase, we've been moving more capability into the region. And on our intelligence, Mossad and CIA and military intelligence has all improved because we've had 6 weeks. And therefore, we're going to conduct even more devastating attacks than we did for the first 4 or 5 weeks. We got about 2 weeks left. And as a result of that, we're going to put this regime on the path of not just military destruction, but economic destruction as well. And they're not going to be able to make payroll and sustain themselves. And at that point, at the end of the campaign, is when we talk to them and say, we'll give you a free ride out of here in any place you want to go, and we'll spare you. And we're not going to follow you with sanctions, et cetera. And see if they would take that deal. Maduro didn't take the deal, but maybe they would take the deal because they're going to be in a much more desperate situation. Maduro was not in as desperate a situation as what these guys have been in, who will be hiding in bunkers for the next 2 to 3 weeks, and obviously being concerned about their own individual lives. I think we got all the cards to play here, and I hope we play them. And
General Jack Keane, we have also Governor George Pataki here.
General, thank you for being on and for your really intelligent analysis. Do you actually think that if we begin again the kinetic war effort, that it could be over in as short as 2 or 3 weeks?
That's what yes. I mean, in talking to the Israelis and talking to CENTCOM, that is what they estimate, and that's what they've told the president. They've got about 2 weeks of targeting to take place. Then they would open the Straits of Hormuz. That would last longer. Obviously, we have to secure it. We already have the lanes secure and make certain that the traffic is flowing. And obviously, the Iranians will attempt to retaliate that. But we would do the full combat operations first and make certain that while we're doing that, obviously, we're destroying a lot of their ability to retaliate against those straits. If we don't open the Straits of Hormuz, even through a peace deal, if the straits are open and because we cancel our blockade, the other problem you have with that, Governor, is the Iranians are going to hold that over the heads of people in the region, for years to come. Every time there's a crisis, they're going to threaten taking down the Straits of Hormuz. So I think it's the right thing to do is to show them that we can open this and secure it.
There's no choice. No choice. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
I have a question also, Jack, on the UAE. Like UAE and Saudi and Qatar are the ones who said, okay, give a few more days now. Try to give peace a chance. He was all ready to go. In fact, he even confirmed it today, the president, that he was within an hour of making the call and then held back because they said, wait, we may have a deal. What is the objective of UAE and Saudi and Qatar? Especially UAE is getting pounded by Iran. And in fact, there were more strikes today from Iran to UAE. So what's their objective as to why they're now putting it on pause?
I'm stunned by it, to be frank. Completely surprised. And also the UAE. Listen, the UAE has been fighting back. They don't talk about it, but they've been conducting strikes on Iran when the war began. They have 19 Patriot batteries to help defend them, and they have Iron Dome with Israelis manning the Iron Dome in their country. And I don't understand what their concern is. I don't get it. And they have been steady from the beginning. Saudi Arabia surprises me, but not as much as the UAE does. Qatar has no capability whatsoever, and the Iranians are already, in their country. They share the gas distribution and production capability that's in Qatar as it is. That country, I realize, they want peace. They don't want any war. I get it, but the UAE has been really tough. Now, why are they focusing on the UAE? One, because the UAE has normalized with Israel, and it is absolutely historic that we have Israeli troops in an Arab nation defending them with an air defense system. Can you imagine that?
That's amazing. Yeah.
That's what normalization gets you. Yep. The second thing is the UAE represents modernity for the Arab states. There's no Arab state that it is modern in its culture and in every which way. They've advanced that small country into something to be very proud of, and the Iranians see it as a symbol of Arab dominance that they're beginning to achieve. And that's why I think they've attacked them more than they've attacked Israel, in excess of 2,800 times, to be frank about it.
Yeah, and Governor Pataki, you have one question here for the General.
General, just switching gears, I've been following every day the Institute for the Study of War's frontline maps and analysis of the Ukrainian war. And there seems to be a growing consensus that the tide has turned, and the Ukrainians not only are not losing, but are at least holding their own and perhaps have the Russians on their back foot. Could you briefly comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. On the front lines, the war's been stalemated for 18 months or so, and the Russians haven't been able to make all that much progress. They made some. But now in 26, the Russians are losing more troops than they can replace. That has never happened in all the years of the war. And that has enabled Ukrainians to move on the offense and begin to take ground on the front lines. Not overwhelmingly, but slowly but surely taking more ground. Haven't seen that in 3+ years. Secondly, they are attacking deep into Russia with their own missiles and with long-range drones. They're attacking Moscow. They're attacking manufacturing plants. They're bringing this war to Russia in a way that they have not done before. And that also is beginning to take notice, particularly among the people in Russia. So, yes, that's a good word. The tide has turned. The momentum has shifted to the Ukrainians for the first time since the beginning of the war, when the Ukrainians stopped the Russian offensive from overrunning Kyiv.
And Governor Pataki, your son is in Ukraine right now?
Yes, he is.
Tell me what he's doing.
Well, the Pataki Center is working with the State Department to do youth sports activities in Ukraine. And he's over there with a couple of other of our volunteers for the Pataki Center. And today, actually.
And he's safe and everything's fine?
Well, yeah, he's safe. There's no place in Ukraine that is immune from the possibility of an attack, but they're not near the front lines. And this morning, they had 12 youth flag football teams show up for a tournament in central Ukraine. And what we're trying to do is raise the morale of the next generation. That, yes, you've lived through a horrible war. It's not over yet, but there is going to be a future. You can have fun.
General, last question. Putin was in to see President Xi today. Any gut feeling?
Say that again.
Putin.
The speech?
Putin was supposed to go see Xi today in China.
Oh.
Did he go,
yeah.
or do you have any knowledge of that?
I'm assuming he did. I mean, they want to solidify this relationship. Listen, they have their challenges. Putin has got his challenges with Ukraine. Obviously, he made a strategic mistake in invading Ukraine. He's taken on more than he really has the wherewithal to deal with. That's pretty obvious when you look at what's happening to him. He and President Xi both lost their foothold in the Western Hemisphere with Venezuela, which was kind of their prize in the relationship they had. They're also, I think, getting close to Cuba being in economic collapse. And so, yeah, he wants to shore up this relationship is what this is really all about. And make no mistake about it. I mean, they are partners. China and Russia both, they certainly want a negotiated deal here. And why is that? They don't want the United States to continue to physically and materially and economically destroy Iran, because that's their foothold in the Middle East. They want to see a negotiated deal where Iran gets to survive and extends itself. Therefore, their foothold in the Middle East and their influence remains solid. That's what they want, and that's why
General,
they're helping them.
I was with Maria Bartiromo this morning on her show, and I said that Putin and Xi, their mission is for President Trump to either lose the Senate or lose the Congress this year, and that way, if they bring in the Democrats, then I guess we have a problem. Well, thank you.
No doubt about it. Hey, Governor, I just want to I know you were going to end here. I really appreciate the leadership you provided to my state. I'm a born and raised New Yorker. I don't live there, but I visit it all the time. I grew up in city housing projects in New York City.
Well, General,
really applaud your service.
The governor is the honoree this year, and on 9/11, if you happen to be near, please come. It's on September 11th, and it's the WABC and the Pataki Center doing a joint ceremony for 25 years and 250 years.
That's wonderful.
General,
Wonderful,
thank you for your kind words, and most importantly, thank you for all you have done for this great country.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, General. Thank you. Have a good day, General. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rita, do we have a break, or what do we have?
Actually, we got a break right now, and then we have Professor Alan Dershowitz right after that.
Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Very Hawks baseball.
Tuesday, May 19th at 10:30 a.m., it's morning baseball. Wednesday, May 20th at 6:30 p.m., have a pawsome time at Bark in the Park. Thursday, May 21st at 6:30, it's Pride Night with $5 Bud or Bud Light draft beer. Individual game tickets start at just $12.
Visit VeryHawks.com now to lock in your seats.